Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Welcome into another edition of the Miguez Mindset here on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles. We're back. It's been a hectic last couple of months over at Delta Media. If you live under a rock, I got a promotion. I'm now the program director of Lafayette's Rock and Alternative 106.3, which is why there haven't been many episodes of the Miguez Mindset, kind of getting my feet wet with this new promotion. But we're back because there is a ton to talk about. The college football season in the books. We'll recap the national championship game. The Saints are still looking for a new head coach. We will talk about that as well. Joining me, making his Miguez Mindset debut, is the big, bald, and beautiful. He is the host of RP3 and Mesh every weekday from 11 to 1 on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles. It is the one and only Mr. Raymond Parch III, better known as RP3. RP3, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. My team is playing a game on Sunday.
The man's rocking the Commander's gear. So first I've got to ask, how have you dealt with being snowed in for the last couple of days? I know you're a Midwest guy. I know you're kind of used to this, but here in South Louisiana, not so much. How has the last couple of days been for you?
I mean, look, it's been amazing. We drove out yesterday, went to the store, found a local store. Well, drove all the way to Opelousas to find a store, and thankfully there was one open there. We needed a couple of supplies, but besides that, man, it was fine. It was we built a snowman at the neighbor's house, then we built a snowman here. We did snow angels here in the backyard. We did snow angels in the front yard. I even attempted to take this rubber mat that we put our shoes on in our house, and my wife was like, "Well, why don't we use that?" And I was like, "Well, I'll go get my ratchet strap." And so we strapped our daughter onto the mat, and I tried to drag her like sledding. It didn't work. I drug her through the snow, though. There's video evidence of that.
That's
now
incredible.
on the Facebook. But no, man, it's been good. We're gearing up to kind of ramp things back up now that the snow is melting. But we didn't have any water problems. We didn't, have any tree limbs fall down, anything like that. We just enjoyed some family time and enjoyed a historic snow, the most snow we've ever had here in this part of the state since 1895. So glad my daughter, who's 10 years old, got to experience this, because this is the type of snowfall. We got 8.5 inches here at my house in Sunset. So this is the type of snow that we would get maybe 3 or 4 times a year when I lived in Illinois for about 6 years. So I'm glad she got to experience what it's like. And we went out walking yesterday when it started to melt and start to deal with the ice. So I got to show her, this is how you're supposed to do things. These are how you drive in these situations. And so she got the full experience. So it was a blessing. You get to have something historic like this, and it not to be destructive, right?
Yeah, no
when
doubt.
we live in Southwest Louisiana, we think of historic weather events, we think of hurricanes.
Right.
To be able to experience a historic weather event and it not be destructive, that's a big thumbs up. Big thumbs up for
me. Big thumbs up. It was a lot of fun. There's still plenty of snow in my front yard right now. As again it begins to melt. I made 2 snowmen. I made one that was a Cajun snowman because we're very inexperienced at how to do this. So it was really just a blob with some ice, right?
So he was fat on the bottom, is what you're saying.
Correct.
There
Correct.
Yeah.
And then had a very small head. So that was there was no middle. There was no body.
There'd be none of that. Well, the snow was so soft, right? The powder was so soft that it makes it a little bit tougher to build the snowman that way. So yeah, we have the fat Jabba the Hutt snowman out front as well.
But the second one, the one we built yesterday, was much better. He had 3 distinctive parts to him. We put
You're so proud.
I am, because that was the first snowman I ever got to build. So there were steps made as a human being yesterday in Southwest Louisiana. Look, RP3, let's talk.
You're more proud about that than you have been, in my experience working with you, of winning a ratings book, getting a new suit for the Super Bowl, or anything like that. You're more excited about the snowman than you are that. So
Yeah, I won't lie. That's true. All right, let's talk some college football. Ohio State climbs to the top of the mountain
yeah,
again. Look, it's interesting. First playoff ever, they win it. First 12 team playoff, they win it.
correct.
Um, what's and it was a game where, look, that opening drive that Notre Dame had the football, they knock off almost 10 minutes off the clock, score, and I thought, man, if Notre Dame can keep this up, this is exactly what they want to do. They want to keep Ohio State's offense off the field. They want to run the clock and they want to have success, keep it low scoring, keep it physical, and they're going to have a shot to win this thing. And then Ohio State said, no, that's not going to happen.
Well, we talked about it leading into the game. Like, so Notre Dame plays pretty much base man coverage, right?
Yeah.
So we saw what Texas was able to do where they took out Smith, who's the most sensational wide receiver in the country. Sorry, Ryan Williams at Alabama, you're in the mix, but the kid at
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State is that guy. He's one of one, so to speak. So we saw in the semifinals, Texas was like, okay, we're going to play a little zone, and took him out of the game, and that gave them a chance to limit Ohio State's big play ability. And that gave them the chance to win the game. Now, we could argue Texas did some boneheaded play calling issues and they had some costly mistakes as well in that game. But the scheme was there. And the big conversation was, okay, well, with 10 days, can Notre Dame change what they do defensively? Because that's what they are, right? They are what they are.
Sure.
They play man. You can't teach zone technique in 10 days. And so Notre Dame went up into that game and they said, okay, we are going to dance with the girl that we brought to the dance, essentially. And it cost them because what Howard sets a championship game record for most consecutive completions to start a game. We've never seen him play a game like that at Kansas State or Ohio State. The greatest game he has ever played, or at least the greatest first half he's ever played. But so Ohio State just scores and scores and scores and scores and scores. And like, so you're like, it got to a point where I was like, it's time to turn this off. But credit Notre Dame. They did make some adjustments. They fought back and they showed that kind of grit that they have had all season long, right? They're not a flashy team. They have a stud running back in Love. Riley Leonard can make plays with his legs, which he did in the national championship game, right? But they don't have dynamic pass catchers. Ohio State's roster is filled with far more Jimmy and Joes than Notre Dame has. And we know this. And we knew that going into the ball game, right? There was just no way. But they end up losing 34-23. I like the fight I saw out of Notre Dame in the second half. And we need to do something real quick about this. So two things came out of this game that became big talking points. One, Ohio State bought a national championship. Well, first of all, this is the new era that we live in college football. Okay. We live in the NIL era. And we have programs that have committed with their booster base, which includes millionaires and in some cases billionaires, that they are going to funnel money to their program to go out and get the free agents needed to win a championship. That's what they do. Now, I want to list the top 8 teams, and this was courtesy of On 3 Sports a while ago. The top 8 teams that spent money through NIL collectives for the 2024 college football season. You ready? Number 1 was Oregon, $23 million.
Yep.
They were the number 1 seed. They were undefeated. They got upset by Ohio State in the quarters, right? Number 2 was Texas, $22.2 million estimated. They reached the semifinals where they lost to Ohio State. Ohio State was 3rd, $20.2 million. LSU was 20.1. And LSU didn't even come close to sniffing the college football playoff. Number 5 was Georgia, 18.3. Texas A&M, number 6, 17.2. They didn't come close to sniffing the playoff either. Michigan, 16.3, a year after winning the national title. They didn't come close. They upset Ohio State, and then they beat Alabama in the bowl game, but they weren't very good this year.
Correct.
Alabama, 16 million on the outside. So how many teams right there? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the top 8 teams didn't even make the playoff. So this notion that Ohio State, like their national championship doesn't mean as much. No, Ohio State pivoted. They understood we have a lot of talent coming back. We are going to go get the stud running back from Ole Miss. We're going to go get a quarterback from Kansas State. We are going to add to our roster, and we're going to treat this like an NFL franchise does. And it paid off, and they won the national title. It also paid off for Texas because they reached the semis, right? Oregon was the number 1 overall seed.
And let's not forget that this Ohio State team was the 8th seed in this playoff.
Correct. We can discuss the seedings and how they got to kind of tweak that moving forward because we're going to have it again next year. It's not going to change, right? You're still going to have the top 4 conference champs. They're going to get the bye, which I don't necessarily agree with. I view it the same way as NCAA men's basketball. Okay. There was a year, not that long ago, where I believe Georgia went on a run and won the SEC men's conference tournament. I'd have to look it up. Well, they didn't get a bye, right? They didn't get a 1 or 2 seed just because they won their conference tournament because they didn't have a good regular season, right? So that's the part that they're going to – I would, if I was the czar of college football, I'd say, okay, these are your top – the College Football Playoff Committee has said these are our top teams. Great. Seed them that way. Like I don't need this. I don't need this whole thing. Top 4 conference champs get the thing. And I also would like to see 2 things to tweak here. 1, fix the seeding process. 2, it would be to go ahead and change. The seeding process has to be changed first and foremost. And that's not going to happen from the year. I want to see that. And I also want to see, more importantly, I want to see more games on campus. And this can be figured out. Okay. I need to see more games on campus because that was electric. It was awesome watching Notre Dame take on Indiana. It was amazing seeing those games. You can still have the bowl games, right? You can still have your Sugar, your Peach Bowl, your Fiesta Bowl, Rose Bowl. You can still have all those in the mix for maybe, semifinals. But I'd like to see the first round, and then I would like to see the quarterfinals be on campus. Because if you're going to give teams the bye, then the bye should be they earn the bye, and then they should host the game.
Correct. That's
right?
Fair.
So
that's fair.
So make the first 2 rounds on campus, right? So now everyone gets an extra home game, and then you can just figure out the semifinals rotation of Rose, Sugar, and everything, just like you did before with the 14 playoff, right? We figured that out, and we figured that out for the BCS national championship game as well. So there's a way of doing it. There's television revenue involved and everything like that. So those are the 2 things that I want to see done. And to circle back, the narrative about Ohio State buying a championship. The other narrative that I've seen out there is that, well, Notre Dame doesn't belong. They played the games on their schedule. They beat the teams on their schedule, right? No one expected USC to be not as good as they ended up being this year, right? And remember, they were ranked when they beat LSU in the opener.
Correct. Okay,
so we can't have revisionist history here and go, they played the teams that were on their schedule, and some of them were ranked at the time, including Army, including, I want to say Louisville was ranked at the time.
Yep.
And then they went through, and everyone made an excuse. With Notre Dame, it was, well, yeah, but, right? Well, yeah, they got in, but they only beat Indiana. Well, Indiana's 2 losses on the season were to the 2 teams that played for the national title.
Correct.
Once again, Indiana's schedule is what their schedule. Was it the strongest schedule in the Big Ten? Absolutely not. You talk to Big Ten people, they'll tell you the same thing. The team won 11 games, lost 1.
Yeah, don't tell me that they didn't belong.
And they belonged more than if you're going based on talent. No, they didn't belong. But if you're based on doing what you were supposed to do and winning the games in front of you, they belonged there far more than Alabama did or South Carolina did. Okay, so just stop with all that nonsense. But it was, oh, Notre Dame just beat Indiana. Okay. Then it was, oh, they took down the mighty SEC champ, who, by the way, won the conference. Georgia did.
Yeah.
And the backup quarterback, if you remember, Cook got injured in the first half of that game. The backup quarterback got played for the majority of the second half, right? And helped them put together scoring drives and helped them beat Texas to win the conference championship game. So he's not a scrub.
Correct.
But it was made out that, oh, Notre Dame, well, if Cook would have been there, well, we don't know that. But they beat the team that was in front of them. They beat the mighty SEC team. Then they get to the semifinals and they take down a Penn State team. And the Penn State argument is, well, Penn State didn't beat anyone. First of all, they got a tight end that's going to be playing on Sundays. Absolute stud. I know Drew Aller is allergic to forward pass. I understand that. Okay. But
they have two running backs that are going to play on Sunday one day.
Right. They decided to go back. They're coming back for another year. So, but, you know, the knock on Penn State was, well, they don't beat anybody. James Franklin doesn't beat ranked opponents. Well, he beat two ranked opponents to get his team to the semifinals, right? And I know it was SMU and Boise, but once again, there was excuses made every way with Notre Dame. I think that takes away from the job Marcus Freeman did this year as the head coach of the Fighting Irish. We know they don't have as much talent as other teams, right? And we understand why Brian Kelly thought when he left Notre Dame that he had to go someplace else to be able to win a national title. Because at Notre Dame, he took them to a title game. They got skull drugged by Alabama. Alabama had all the talent, far more talent than Notre Dame had. They get to another college football playoff. They get drugged again, right? Like every time they got into a big game against a big team from the ACC or the SEC, they got embarrassed.
Yep.
Notre Dame didn't get embarrassed, right? In this playoff format, they didn't. They showed a lot of fight. They may have lost by 10 plus points, but they didn't get embarrassed, right? This wasn't 56-10. It just wasn't. This wasn't TCU Georgia,
correct?
Right? So, but I understand Brian Kelly's rationale of wanting to come to LSU. This, for me, leads us to another point: is Brian Kelly under pressure for 2025?
Yes.
I don't think the Notre Dame run is part of that pressure.
No,
okay,
I would agree with that.
It's a nice talking point. You go, hey, the program that you left, they just played for the national title. You still haven't got LSU to the playoff. What I think the bigger thing is that it's year 4, right? It's year 4. The playing field has been leveled out in college football due to NIL. Georgia, Alabama, those and Clemson, those days of them stockpiling 4 and 5 stars and just loading up their roster with them, and they would sit and wait, and then they would be a starter and then go off to the NFL. Those days are gone.
Right.
NIL's changed all that. That's gone. That's done. Right. I mean, we just saw the starting quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs leave to go get money to go play for the Miami Hurricanes. He's the starting quarterback at Georgia, who was the number 2 seed in the college football playoff. And my man's like, I'm going to go down to Miami. Now, you know, his girlfriend's
down there. I was
about
to say, his lady had a hand in it, but sure.
Right. And you know, if he was a second-round draft pick, he's making more money this year at Miami for one season than he would be for his contract as an NFL drafted quarterback in the second round. So this is leveled the playing field. For BK, for me, number 1 portal class, rated portal class, right? Top 5 recruiting class before then. You're bringing back the best quarterback in the SEC, and Garrett Nussmeier. And then maybe it's the kid from South Carolina, but it's Nuss, right? There's no excuse not to make the play.
You bring back Caden Durham.
Right. You're bringing back a lot of guys. You're bringing back Anderson. You're bringing back Thomas in the receiving core. You go and get all the other guys to add to it. You retain your defensive staff. You're bringing back Harold Perkins. So you got all the talent out of the portal. You're spending money in your NIL collective. So the NIL collective is doing its job in spending its money. You have the number 1 portal class. You have the top 5 recruiting class. You have the best quarterback in the SEC coming back. And more importantly, the playing field has been leveled. There's not a dominant team in the SEC. We expect Texas to be good, and everyone thinks Arch Manning is going to be the second coming of, you know, whoever you want to say. I need to see if he can beat Vince Young and lead him to a title. We'll see. But you expect Texas to be good, but they had problems this year, right? They were vulnerable. Georgia, we expect to be good, but they're not as dominant as they once were. So after that, who else? It's not Alabama. Kalen DeBoer. I mean, they had the worst season they had in 15 years, and LSU still couldn't beat them. Like you got to. There's no excuse. Alabama's down. Ole Miss, we expect to be down because they lose so much from this year's team, including local products like Trey Harris and Trey Amos.
I think
so,
Florida takes a step in the right direction, but
Florida should take a step. South Carolina, we expect to probably be there, but it's all open. If you're LSU, you are the national brand. You are a national brand. You're spending the NIL money. You got the number one transfer portal class. You got the best quarterback in the SEC. You got top 5 recruiting class. You got all your defensive coaches coming back. They should be even better this year. No excuses, because Notre Dame, who you left, just played for a national title. And because you couldn't fix the defense early as you should have, we got Jane Daniels going to win Rookie of the Year. We got Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. in the mix for Rookie of the Year as finalists, right? So you had all that firepower. Will Campbell, who was there last year as well, and is this past season and the season before when you had Jaden win the Heisman, guess what? He's going to be probably a top 5 pick too.
Correct.
So you had a lot of talent. You couldn't get it done. But you have the built-in buffer of year one really doesn't matter because you took over the program with only 35 scholarship players. You had a wide receiver playing quarterback in the bowl game at the Texas Bowl. We've heard that story. It's been beat into our head numerous times. That's great. By the way, they won the West that year and played for a conference championship. So no excuses, right? The Notre Dame thing is what national people are going to focus in on. But the thing for us down here is it is year number 4, and you have all the NIL money, you have the transfer portal class, you have the recruiting class, you have the defensive staff, best quarterback in the SEC. Should be no excuse not to win a national title. I'm not saying that. But you
got to make the playoff.
For LSU, you have to be one of the 12 teams in the playoff. Yep. If not, it's an object failure, just without a doubt.
Yep. I'm not ready to say that Scott Woodward would fire Brian Kelly after year 4 if they don't make the playoffs, but some tough decisions would definitely be made next offseason if that were the case. Now, look, another reason that I brought up the fact that Ohio State was the 8th seed and won the national title was because of the seeding. Look at the road that they had to take to win a national title. They had to beat Tennessee. They had to go to the Rose Bowl and beat the number 1 team in Oregon. And then they had to go to the Cotton Bowl and play one of the better defenses in the country in Texas before going play arguably the best defense in the country in Notre Dame in the national championship. Like there was nothing easy about the track that Ohio State had to take. At one point, we were saying that they might have had the toughest track out of any of the teams of the playoff.
They earned it. So they earned it, right? They had the draw that they had, and they had to go through multiple contenders to win a national title.
For sure.
They earned it. Now, as this happens every single year, and I'm just going to take off my glasses. So
here we go.
As this happens every single year, the fan base and sometimes media folks get involved in this. Is this the greatest run in college football history? Is this one of the greatest teams? And I go, stop. First of all, for me, there are 3 teams, probably 4 teams that were the greatest college football teams that I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm almost 50, so I'm 46 years old. Okay? I'll read it out to you. 1995 Nebraska. Tommy Frazier, triple option, the black defense, just a monster. Now, it's a different time, right? I think in 2001 Miami, that Hurricanes team was so many NFL guys. The Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, Lindell White USC team that absolutely crushed Oklahoma. That's been vacated, but that team was unbelievable.
That was 04, I believe. Yeah.
The 2004 USC team. And then it's the 2019 LSU team. Yeah. And it's everybody else. It's for me, it's those four and then everyone else. So as great as the season is for Ohio State, and they deserve everything they get, right? The national champs. It's not 2019, which was
No.
probably the best offense I've ever seen, best passing offense I've ever seen. Nebraska was the best running offense I've ever seen. 2001, Miami was probably the most talented team NFL wise I've ever seen, and the USC team could be part of that as well. So it's those four and then everyone else. It's not a knock on the Buckeyes. It's just,
For sure.
Cat, you're a two-loss team, first of all. And by the way, I also think we're not. I think, and it's not to say that it won't happen, Matt. The era of undefeated national champs, I think, is over. Because of an expanded playoff, you're allowed to trip up more during the regular season. In Ohio State's case, they didn't play for a conference championship, by the way. All right. They tripped up. They lost to Oregon when Will Howard had the brain fart late in the
Correct.
game. They're in Eugene. They lose to Oregon, and then they lost inexplicably to Michigan and looked bad in that Michigan loss. And that's how they ended their regular season. So I just don't think you're going to see this. It's going to give you more opportunities to have mulligans. Look at Ohio State. They had 2 losses. There was a strong push to put Alabama with its awful losses
Right.
into the college football playoff, right? South Carolina the same way. Ole Miss lost to one of the worst Kentucky teams in modern history. So, but they were still in the mix. You understand what I'm saying? So I just think, Oregon was undefeated and they made it. But I think undefeated national champions moving forward are going to be an outlier. They're going to be few and far between. The majority of them you're going to see as 1 loss or 2 losses are going to be your national champions.
All right, RP3, let's switch over to the NFL. We'll start
My glasses.
we'll start with the NFC Championship game. Your Washington
Oh,
Commanders. We'll go to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, a team that they beat a month ago. And
which I don't love, by the way.
rather dramatic fashion, which probably makes it worse.
Yes.
What stands out about, the way the Commanders have gotten to this point? The big narrative for them has been, they're a year, maybe even 2 years ahead of schedule, right?
I would say
Jaden Daniels might have put up the best rookie campaign we may have ever seen. What stands out about the way that they've gotten to this point and how they can potentially beat the Eagles for a second time to earn a trip to New Orleans?
I have my doubts. Look, I want my team to win on Sunday. I'm going to be cheering on my team hard to win on Sunday. Do I think they're going to win on Sunday? I do not. You got to beat Philly in Philly. And you just beat them in dramatic fashion. That's still fresh on their brain, right? So that's an advantage, Philly. And Philly also has, as great of a story as Washington is, Philly's been a fascinating story of dysfunction all season long. Coach was on the hot seat after 4 games. Coach in the front office don't see eye to eye. The quarterback and his stop wide receiver, they don't see eye to eye. And you have linemen talking about what's happening on podcast. And there's all types of messiness going on with Philly. But they have Saquon Barkley. And Washington can't stop the run, which I was stunned by what happened in the Detroit game, because why did you stop trying to run the football?
Correct.
Because Washington struggles to stop the run. You have the best running back in the NFL in this game on Sunday. In cold conditions, he's used to it because where he played college ball and where he played his first years in the pros. It's going to be the Saquon Barkley game, right? No matter if Jalen Hurts can be, coherent enough to actually play. But I digress there. For me, the thing that stands out about this Washington team and my expectations before the start of the season, I've talked about this on the air and I've shared this on social media. I just wanted my team to be competitive. My expectation was be competitive, maybe win 6 or 7 games, and then we can take that step to being a winning team in year number 2. But what's happened is Dan Quinn who a lot of people knocked because of his time in Atlanta, but he won a lot in Atlanta. Now, he didn't win the big one. We know this, but he's a culture builder. And his guys love playing for him. His guys, those guys go through a brick wall for him. They love him. He's got that Dan Campbell kind of vibe to him, right? He's a player's coach. So he changed the culture. Now, part of this is new ownership, new front office, new head coach, new quarterback. You know, the story was out there this last week or so where the last couple of weeks are leading into the NFC divisional round that Washington pursued Ben Johnson, but Ben Johnson told him that in Washington, the new leadership, new owner, GM, head coach said, we want to, or not new head coach at the time, but the new owner and GM said, we want to start over from scratch. We want to find us a franchise quarterback. We're going to draft one. And Ben Johnson's like, well, no, I want Sam Howell to be my quarterback. Yeah, Sam Howell's still there. None of this happens, right?
Correct.
So they found the guy that the players could fight through a wall for. You bring in Bobby Wagner, the veteran presence on the defensive side of the football. He's worked with Dan in the past, back in their Legion of Boom days. So, ironically enough, the defense is the thing that still is behind, right?
Correct.
The head coach is a well-regarded defensive coordinator in Seattle and Dallas, and their defenses were pretty good in Atlanta when he was there as a head coach. It's still a work in progress, right? We got maybe a couple guys, some good D linemen. They're not great. They're good. You got some young guys in the back end. They're, so, but he's built a culture where it's like, I got your back. We're in this together. I believe in you. And then you have the combo of Jane Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury. And Cliff hasn't got enough love here because he's been a failed head coach at Texas Tech and with the Arizona Cardinals.
Correct.
But he knows quarterbacks, right? He coached Patrick Mahomes. He's coached Kyler Murray. He knows quarterbacks. And they formulated an offense that suits Jaden's needs. If you watch Washington play, it's not exactly what Jane Daniels is going to be in 2 to 3 years. They're like, okay, he's a rookie quarterback. We know he likes to use his legs a lot. He's really good at it. Let's do this. And just like Jaden developed a rapport with Malik Neighbors when he first got at LSU, and they did all that work in spring, and then when they first started playing together that first season, it was lights off, right? Like Keyshawn Butte was not on the same page with Jane Daniels, but Malik Neighbors was. Jaden did that with Terry McLaurin. So he developed trust and a rapport with him, his number one wide receiver, right off the bat. Did the same thing with Zach Ertz. But once again, Terry, Zach are veteran guys.
Yep.
You help your franchise quarterback. You know how you help rookie quarterbacks? You surround them with veteran coach, veteran
Austin
players,
Eckler.
Right? You bring in Austin Eckler because what he can do. So once again, no all pros, right? Austin Eckler is a good player. Zach Ertz is a good player. Terry McLaurin's an all pro, finally. But even behind a leaky offensive line with a rookie quarterback, they figured it out. And then they figured, because Cliff, the way he calls games has been remarkable with Jaden. You see the progression as the season's gone along. They trust each other. And then it's just this belief of no matter what happens, we have this. And that comes from Jaden. It comes from Dan as the head coach saying, hey, we're not going to get rattled. Doesn't matter if we're down by 10 with a minute 15 to go. We'll figure it out, right? That comes from the top down. So your head coach believes in you no matter what the circumstances is. And you have a quarterback who never gets rattled. Do you see Jane Daniels getting demonstrative on the sidelines? Do you see Jane Daniels getting frustrated and throwing his helmet down on the ground when something doesn't go right?
No.
You heard Tom Brady talk about it in the last playoff game about how the young man doesn't play like a rookie, doesn't carry himself like a rookie. Remember, Jane Daniels had 55 starts in college at Arizona State and at LSU. He carries himself. And when you're in the huddle with that guy and you talk to actual former players, and they say a lot of times they'll look to their quarterback. And if the quarterback is cool as a cucumber, then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, what are we stressed about? You know, the famous story, we're getting ready for the Super Bowl, and the famous story about what Joe Montana did in the Super Bowl against the Bengals. and John Candy is on the far end of the field, and it's a famous story. And he points out, he goes to one of his linemen, and they're down. They're down in the Super Bowl. Like they need to come 90 yards to go put together a touchdown drive to win the Super Bowl. And he goes, "Hey man, you see who's down there? That's John Candy. It's John Candy's down there." And they're like, "Oh yeah." And they all just relax. What happened? Game winning drive. Jaden has that about him. So you have the poise of a rookie that doesn't play like a rookie. You have a head coach that is built a culture of believing each other, and they go for it on fourth down all the time, just like Detroit does. Like, once again, as a head coach, you're giving faith to your players to let them know, hey, I got your back. I believe you can go do this. All of a sudden now, coach believes we got this, right? It's infectious in a good way. So I think that's a combination of Jaden's poise and his playmaking ability, Cliff's ability as a play caller, Dan's ability to be a leader and culture builder, the front office being committed to bringing in the right guys. Oh, by the way, we got like $15 million in cap space too. Like, correct. Even if the season ends on Sunday, you've shown the world most wins since 1991 in an NFC championship game for the first time since the 1991 season when we went on to win the Super Bowl. That all of a sudden you got a dynamic quarterback. You're playing at a high level. You have a coach that players love to play for. Oh, and we have money to give. You think they're going to have any issues going to get free agents this offseason?
No.
No, they're not. So they're primed for future success. Obviously, health is the utmost importance. And just like with Cincinnati, when they got Joe Burrow, and in year 2 they went to the Super Bowl despite having a terrible offensive line, here's Washington in year 1 with a rookie quarterback having an opportunity to go to a Super Bowl. Washington has to fix the offensive line, and they have to protect their asset. And that's something Cincinnati still hasn't figured out to do. So you don't want Washington to be like what Cincinnati is, where you have all the great early playoff success, and you just say, oh, we got this, and not really address the flaws of this team. And Washington's top flaw is its offensive line.
Again, we talk about this historic season for the Washington Commanders, but you still have them losing to the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, correct?
I just don't see a scenario, Matt. It boils down to this. We can't stop the run all that well. Barkley is the best running back in the league. The second thing is, have you met Mr. Carter yet for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He feels like he's the next Sue or Darnold in the league, right? The most dominant defensive lineman. The man that you don't want to meet in a dark alley, right? As our guy D'Lo would say. So they don't have, and we lost one of our best offensive linemen in the divisional round to injury. Correct. So how is Washington going to stop Carter? I think we're going to have fight. It's a divisional game. I'd love if we have some magic and we can pull off a win and beat Philadelphia. It would be so sweet to make it to the Super Bowl by defeating a divisional rival, the one that I dislike more. Dallas and Philly are always hand in hand with me. So, but I want it. I want it to happen. I really do. I really do. But we struggle to stop the run. They're a great running team.
It's true.
We struggle to protect our quarterback. And they're really good in the front seven of disrupting quarterbacks. It seems like, and it's in Philly, it seems like the odds are a little stacked against us. So yeah, I'm picking against my team. Because as much as I love them, I'm also a realist. And I'm going to pick against them to win the game. I want them to win. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Now the AFC title game. This one, look, I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. The Kansas City Chiefs are in the AFC title game for the 7th straight year. Which,
one short of the record, by the way. That was Brady in New England.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And then you have the Buffalo Bills, who, again, talking about narratives, going into the season, the Buffalo Bills were going to be rebuilding and they were going to take a step back because who was Josh Allen going to throw the ball to? He's got the island of misfit toys as weapons, right? But then they brought in Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman, our local product, has kind of made a name for himself as a rookie this year. And obviously Dalton Kincaid is a fantastic tight end in his second season with Buffalo. But look, they've been riding on the legs of Josh Allen, who
Yep.
will win MVP. By the way, he will win MVP.
I think it's probably going to be Allen. I think it's going to be close. I mean, it's between him and Lamar because the votes were already done before the playoff matchup,
Correct.
by the way.
Correct.
So I don't think you could go wrong either way. I really don't. For me, I thought Buffalo was going to take a step back because you have your franchise quarterback and you let Diggs go and you let your number 2 wide receiver go. And Kincaid is good. He's not elite, right? He's not
Right.
top 3 at his position yet.
He's a
just
very
not.
he's a very good tight end, but he's not elite.
Right.
Yes.
Keon, who we love, Opelousas Catholic product, who went to Florida State, a rookie wide receiver. You're going to have some growing pains, right? Because you're a rookie. You trade for Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I mean the
Cook,
Bills the Bills top.
Cook is good. Cook is a good running back. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe even very good running back, but he's not Saquon Barkley, right?
No.
So I saw the stat where Josh Allen's the first quarterback in like modern history to earn first team or second team All Pro honors and not have a single teammate earn All Pro honors. All right, so there you go. They're led by one guy, right? They're led by one guy, and he's done a nice job of building up the confidence of Keon and incorporating Amari and using the tight ends. And Cook runs hard. He's not afraid of contact. The defense has played better as the season has progressed. Once again, their head coach is a former defensive guy. So Buffalo has played at a very high level. But it comes down to Jimmy's and Joe's a lot of times for me when it's a coin flip game. If this game was at an Orchard Park, I'd pick Buffalo. It's in Kansas City. It's inside Arrowhead Stadium. So Kansas City, you could argue Buffalo's roster probably has more talent depth-wise, right? But they don't have the elite talent that Kansas City does, right? If you go, let's say you say Mahomes and Allen are the same, right? Let's say that's a push this year. Mahomes has had probably one of his most down years as a pro. Allen's had one of his better years, one of his top 2 years. He's going to win MVP. Okay. So, but let's just say for argument's sake, that's a push. Okay. Kansas City has the better tight end. Guy's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. You could argue they probably have better wide receivers overall because you got DeAndre Hopkins, you have Hollywood Brown, and you have Xavier Worthy, who, by the way, the NFL allowed Kansas City to draft at the end of the first round, which, whatever. And they got Pacheco back, right?
Correct.
And they got
Kareem Hunt
there, right? So running back's probably a push. Tight end favors Kansas City. Wide receiver probably favors Kansas City. Does Buffalo have a guy as disruptive as Chris Jones that takes over games? Probably not. Right? Oliver is turning into a really good defensive lineman.
Correct.
So, and it's in Arrowhead. And Kansas City knows what it takes to win an AFC championship because they've done it so much. It feels like a coin flip game to me. But Buffalo can't commit a mistake. They just can't. They can't have a lost fumble. They can't have an interception in the red zone. If they do, they lose. Because Mahomes, Kelsey, Jones, Andy Reid, they're not going to make those mistakes. Right? They're just not. So it feels like a coin flip game to me. As it stands right now, I don't know who I'm going to take. It feels like it's Buffalo's year. It does. But the head coach and the quarterback and these guys have never gotten it done before. right? They've never done it before. And if they do it, they have to do it against the dynasty, right? They have to
Yeah,
slay the dynasty to even get to the Super Bowl. It would be remarkable. I lean towards Kansas City because it's hard to bet against them. I understand why people are going with Buffalo because I think Allen's playing out of his mind. But I do think this. I do think Josh Allen has to play the best game of his life. Like
yeah,
I do think that if they're going to win, he's going to. Josh Allen can't be average in this game.
for sure.
He just can't. He can't even be good. I think he has to be very good or has to be elite for them to win this game. I just do.
I'm picking Buffalo because as much as
Oh, I know you are.
I agree with you that, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid don't make those lethal mistakes, especially in these big moments. And I don't know why I feel this way. I can't back it up. Okay. I just have this gut feeling that Mahomes will make a critical mistake down the stretch of this game.
And look, he's done it in some big games before that they've lost, right? So it's not out of the realm of possibility, to your point. But if that's the case, then that leads me to a question for you, Miguez Mindset host. Does that mean that you're going to have to wait even longer to get your head coach for the New Orleans Saints?
Yes, it does.
There
Yes,
it
it
is.
does.
There it is.
It's a double-edged sword. It is.
Because you're a big Joe Brady guy,
I am,
and
and I still am.
and you and I don't see eye to eye on this because I like going more of the veteran coach route. That's just me, right? And look, my team hired a veteran coach,
Correct.
right? But it does put you in a bad spot if you're New Orleans because then you have to wait on your guy. And even if you decide to make the announcement, which I forget if they're allowed to do so anymore, it's changed. If they could do it like during the Pro Bowl week, well, you're still going to have that distraction, right? Is our offensive coordinator locked in to win the Super Bowl? Or is he thinking about preparation of getting prepared to go to the Senior Bowl to scout and put together his staff, which he has to do? And that's the thing. That's the disadvantage for New Orleans because
For
Aaron
sure.
Glenn's putting together his staff in New York, and Mike Vrabel's put together his staff in New England, and Ben Johnson's putting together his staff in Chicago. There's only so many guys to go around. There just is.
No, I mean you're not wrong. You are absolutely not wrong. And that actually leads perfectly into the final question that you and I are going to talk about. What do the Saints do? Because Ben Johnson is gone. He's coaching the Chicago Bears now. Aaron Glenn is now the coach of the New York Jets. That leaves you with Mike McCarthy is the veteran guy, right?
Yep.
Anthony Weaver is a guy with veteran experience that the Saints are actually planning on doing an in-person interview with tomorrow, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. They are flying in Mike Kafka for a second interview this weekend. Obviously, Joe Brady's still on the board for them as well. Cliff Kingsbury, the Commanders' offensive coordinator, is also on the short list, maybe out of just pure necessity. Let's get into the mind of Mickey Loomis. I want to get your thoughts here. Where obviously
That's a scary proposition.
it's a scary place to be. There's no doubt about it. You've got Joe Brady, like we talked about, a guy that is still, coaching in the AFC Championship game. Cliff Kingsbury is a guy still coaching in the NFC Championship game. And then you've got McCarthy, Kafka, and Weaver, who are available to be hired immediately. In your opinion, what makes the most sense and why?
Oh,
Is this a situation where the Saints hire a bridge coach?
There's a difference on what makes sense and what Mickey's going to do. Okay,
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
So he's already told you that he'd like to be someone that he's familiar with. Now, it doesn't mean that has coached for New Orleans. It's just someone that he's familiar with. So obviously, Mike McCarthy checks that box, right? And if you're the Saints, you bring in Mike McCarthy, you're bringing an adult into the room, right? You're bringing in someone who is an adult, who is going to run the team like an adult would. He's a veteran coach. He's won a Super Bowl. I know a lot of Saints fans don't want to hear this. His resume is nearly identical to Sean Payton, by the way. And in more ways than one, he's just husky and boring and not thin and petty. But he's an offensive guy. You wonder though with Mike, despite the 3-12 win seasons in Dallas before things came off the rails with some injuries, is he the guy? If you see, what makes things complicated for the Saints is what is their situation? So, like Washington last year, new head coach, we're drafting a quarterback, starting over. You're not drafting a quarterback, Cat.
No.
Like whoever takes the job inherits Derek Carr, at least for a year. And we know the contract, the way it's situated, that they can leave him after 2025 if they wanted to, and it's not as much of a cap hit. So whoever takes the job has to inherit a veteran 32-year-old quarterback. Well, maybe that's why you put McCarthy in that position, because he's dealt with veteran quarterbacks before, right? But if you go with someone like Joe Brady, my concern, because I know you'd like them to hire Joe Brady, my concern about that is you're asking Joe to take on a lot as a rookie head coach. He is young. He is in his early 30s. You're asking him to take over a roster that has holes across the offensive line, that's question marks at running back behind Alvin Kamara, who, by the way, is getting older, who's had health issues in the wide receiving core. Defense is aging. Salary cap is an issue. That's a lot to ask a rookie head coach who's only had success as an offensive coordinator for a year and a half. That's a lot you're asking him. Like, for me, the Saints situation is not one for success for Joe Brady. It just isn't. I think a veteran coach can handle that situation and handle Mickey Loomis a little bit better right now. Now, in 2 years, it's a different story. But I just don't know. The safe pick would be McCarthy. You take a little bit of a gamble with Joe Brady, but then you have to, for Joe, you're like, well, look how patient they are with Dennis Allen. They tend to be a patient franchise. Maybe they'll give me time to move on. Maybe I can work with Derek Carr and fix him and make him the best version of himself, and then we'll draft a quarterback next year or the year after. But they're in a weird spot. That's why they're not one of the most coveted jobs, is because of where they're at as a franchise right now, with the age of the roster and the money.
If you hire McCarthy, is this a situation where he is, we say a bridge quarterback? Is he a bridge coach? Are you bringing in the veteran Super Bowl winning coach to just get you back to stability, and then you go make that risk hire?
No, because I don't think Mickey operates that way. I mean, we've talked about, you and I have talked about it personally, and I've talked about it on the air. Mickey believes he is a move,
for sure,
a draft pick or two, or a free agent move away from being a contender every year. He still believed in Dennis Allen. We know that he didn't want to fire DA, that his hand was forced because of Gale. So if he's bringing in Mike McCarthy, or if he's bringing in Weaver or Brian Flores or whoever it might be, he believes that guy is going to lead him to a Lombardi. That's how Mickey operates. We may not think that way, but Mickey thinks that way. He thinks that way. So, no, he's not going to be hiring Mike McCarthy to think that he's a bridge coach. He's thinking he's hiring Mike McCarthy because Mike McCarthy can help him win a Super Bowl. That's how he thinks. I'm sorry. That's how he thinks.
I know that's how he thinks, and that's what hurts, because you and I know that the Saints are just not anywhere near close enough, right? Like there is so much overwhelming need for this team. You need a younger quarterback that isn't costing you $50 million a year. You need wide receivers. Look, I love Chris Olave. I could sit here and I can pull out a collection of Chris Olave rookie cards that I have purchased over the last couple of years. I love Chris Olave. You need a number one receiver that can stay on the field because he hasn't been that guy. You
Well,
need
I think you can do okay with Olave. The bigger things for me for the Saints just roster construction. Okay, let's say optimally you say I can get another good 3 years out of Derek Carr from playing where he's at, and he's a mid-tier guy, right? We've established that. Alvin's on the wrong side of where he needs to be age-wise, so you're going to get maybe two premium years of Alvin still left, right? Olave, I'm not concerned about the health things. If it is again this year, I'll be concerned. Shaheed was a freak injury, right? So
yeah.
You could go get another veteran wide receiver. Maybe they have that in Valdez Scantling, right? Maybe they found someone there to play that role for them. What are they going to do at tight end? Foster Moreau is not the guy, right? Not what you want that position to be. Jawan Johnson's wildly inconsistent. You have no one that has shown you anything behind Kamara at running back. And then the defense. Like, you got a lot of old guys on defense. Tyrann Mathieu, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, right? You got to figure that out. They have question marks in a lot of different places.
For sure.
That's a tough spot. That's a tough spot. And I asked you this the other day on the air, and I'll ask you again. I know the Saints job is one of 32. And Mickey said it in his press conference, right? One of 32. These are premium jobs. Everyone wants to be a head coach in the NFL. If I'm Joe Brady, do I want that job? I know he was there for 2 years as a low-level assistant, guy that went and got coffee and got Sean's sheets laminated and all that good stuff.
Juicy
right?
fruit.
Right. If I'm him, why not just wait another cycle, just like Ben Johnson did? Like Ben Johnson got the job he wanted.
Or go to Jacksonville.
He waited. Or go to Jacksonville. Or wait until here's another thing. What if Cincinnati doesn't figure it out?
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Then that may be a job that's opened up next year. Oh, well, does Joe know anybody there? Does Joe Brady know anyone there on the Cincinnati Bengals?
I think so.
I
think he knows a couple.
So
no, for sure.
A couple of look, the Saints job is not the Raiders, right? It's just not. It's not that bad. It's not that bad of a job. But we're seeing guys wait, like Johnson and like others, to go, let me wait. I don't need to take a job because I'm young enough. And by the way, if Josh Allen's healthy, we're going to have another great year next year, which means I'm going to be the most coveted name next year. I'm going to be the new Ben Johnson. Do I need to go take the Saints job? Or should I just run this back again with Allen and prove once again that I'm not a one-year wonder thing and we have another great year, and then I can go pick another job that I want that could be opened up?
It's fair. It's fair. It really is. I mean, look, that's if I was in Joe Brady's shoes, that's definitely something that, you have to consider. I'm not saying that I think Joe Brady would be crazy if he doesn't take the Saints job, because I think it would actually be smarter for him to wait. But if he does want to take the Saints job and turn New Orleans around, then, great. That's awesome. I'd love that.
Miami could be opened up next year. Cincinnati could be.
No, there's jobs. No, there's no.
Right. There's other jobs that we've been hearing. You're like, that's interesting. Right.
Correct.
And you go, well, do I rush into a situation or do I just wait?
Maybe he decides to go be a college head coach first. Like he's got options.
He's going to have options.
He's got options. There's no doubt about it. Who wins out of the Bills and Chiefs?
I got to pick Kansas City. It's a coin flip game, but if you're asking me, I think, and look, we're going to be there for Radio Row all week for the Super Bowl, and it's going to be exciting. But man, it just feels like we're getting Kansas City, Philadelphia. America wants to see Buffalo, Washington.
Yeah.
Right? Is what everyone wants to see.
That's what I want to see.
Right. And that's what if you ask me what I would want to see, I would want to see Buffalo versus Washington. Right. That's what I would want to see personally. Do I think that's what we're going to get? No. I think we're going to get Chiefs, Eagles again.
Ooh, Bills, Eagles would be fun.
That would be fun. And then everyone would cheer for Buffalo.
Correct. Because everyone hates the Eagles.
It's kind of that way.
Because their fans are awful. Anyways,
they kind of are. Yes.
Raymond Parks III, better known as RP3, joining us here on the Miguez Mindset. Call Cat. This might be the longest Miguez Mindset episode ever. So I appreciate you bringing your incredible insight.
It was a little long. My wife even texted me. She goes, "How long is this podcast?"
Well, it wasn't supposed to be this long, but look, the man knows so much. There's so much knowledge in that bald head. You just had to grace us with it. So we appreciate it greatly. We really do.
You're welcome, Matthew. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Smash debut. Make sure you follow us on social media at ESPN_SWLA and on YouTube as well. You can watch past episodes of the Miguez Mindset and get more information on upcoming episodes of the Miguez Mindset. Also, Cleats and Sneaks with James Mesh and 4 Tire Change with Dawson Iserloh. We're back next week to preview the Super Bowl here on the Miguez Mindset.